Hey guys, welcome to today's reading and happy Halloween. In honor of spooky season, in honor of Halloween, we are going to be channeling some messages from the spirits from the other side. The veil is super thin at this time of year, the thinnest it will be year round. So it's the perfect time to speak with the other side, any spirits that want to come through and get some messages for you guys on your journey. Today, we have a selection of different crystals for you to choose from. And if you're new to this channel, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. And basically, you're going to see which of these crystals is sticking out to you, calling your name, drawing your attention in towards it. And then as soon as you make up your mind, just scroll down to the timestamps in the comments and the description and jump right into your pile. By the way, if you like how I read tarot and you want to see more of it, then be sure to head to my Patreon where I post all my additional readings. As soon as you sign up, you'll get access to over 100 exclusive readings you'll only find on Patreon, and you also get early and ad-free access to all my YouTube videos. I just posted a reading all about who is coming towards you, as well as one all about the first quarter of 2025. I can't believe we're already at the end of the year, but we will be getting into all of that over on Patreon. And like I said, you also get early access to my YouTube videos. So if that sounds good to you and you're interested in joining me and signing up for Patreon, head to the link underneath the timestamps in the comments and the description, and I would love to see you there. Also, if you're interested in booking a private session with me, you can do that at my website, briarrosetarot.com. Whether you're looking for a quick half-hour reading, a full hour-length reading, a channeled message session, a tarot session, an astrology session. You get to really choose what we focus on during your session. You get to pick if it's pre-recorded or live one-on-one. So you get to really customize your time with me. So it's the perfect session for you. If that sounds good, then head to my website, briarrosetarot.com, and the link for that is in my description. So thanks for watching, guys. Now, if you need more time to decide, you can totally feel free to rewind, pause, and take as much time as you need, but we're going to go ahead and jump into pile one. Hey pile one, welcome to your reading. Let's get right into your cards. What messages do we have for pile one, spirit? Making a choice. So maybe a lot of you guys picked on this pile when you're torn between something, when you're not sure which path to go on. You may be feeling very torn about something in particular. So hopefully we can get some clarity on that. It may feel like this decision is a huge one, like the end of the world, or just something that's going to be very impactful for you guys, and you may be at a bit of a crossroads in your life. Let's see what guidance we can get for you, pile number one. So we also got Bone Collector and Talisman. Wow. So Bone Collector is a really powerful card that can talk about kind of the trauma we accumulate in life. So this could relate to the decision you're facing. There may be a need to unpack certain past behaviors or certain childhood things, past life things. Sometimes we are acting out of a place of trauma or acting out of a place of dysfunction, and we don't even realize it. Sometimes our behavior or the choices we make are based on a feeling of scarcity or a feeling of lack that came from not getting the proper support at one time or another, like parents that didn't validate us, or maybe financially parents that would tell us things like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, and that's affecting us now. And I think for you guys, there's a call that you may be able to find some clarity on this issue, or to understand what path you're being called to take. If you can really unpack and think clearly about maybe your past tendencies or things that happened to you in the past lifetimes, your tendencies, because I feel like for you, there may be some energy that's playing into the past, or some energy that is stuck in some kind of trauma mode, like some decision that you're making. I often find when you feel super confused or super panicked or super frozen, that's definitely a trauma response. So even that, if it's happening where you're just like, I have to make a choice, I don't know what to do, that can already show that you're in that mode, and that there's something about that is not functional. And for some of you guys, I'm feeling like there also could be a need to just take small steps, like one foot in front of the other, just, just whatever you can do. Like if you're feeling like, I don't know, I'm getting for someone in this reading, someone's procrastinating about like cleaning or doing something small and they keep being like, why do I do this? And for you, and this isn't just a message for people who are procrastinating, but I do think one of the best ways to work through dysfunctional behavior of any kind is just to become aware of it, just to become aware of our thoughts. Sometimes when we are in a trauma mode or like we feel so overwhelmed, no thoughts come to our mind. It's just a panic. And that's often when we find ways to distract ourselves and fall into even more dysfunctional behaviors. We may overeat, we may drink, we may just ignore the situation and scroll on TikTok for 5 hours. But the thing is that if you can like get control of your mind, get present, start processing your thoughts and be like, okay, what is bothering me? What is on my heart that is causing me to seek out this distraction, this oblivion, this, kind of attempt to take myself out of the moment? A lot of times what you'll find is there's fear, there's panic, there's anxiety, and that's why you ate the entire gallon of ice cream, or you ended up drinking so much and getting completely blacked out on what was supposed to be just a fun night out with friends. A lot of those things are attempts to take us out of the moment for something that feels insurmountable. And if you can just be aware of that, if you can just start processing, like, why do I feel frozen? What's going on? What are my thoughts? What am I afraid of? What's happening for me? And to a certain extent as well, where did I, for some decisions, where did I fall into this path? Like if I'm in a genuinely bad situation, if I'm like freaking out because I'm deeply in debt, or freaking out because I am, in a really toxic relationship or whatever, why did I allow this to happen to a certain extent? And of course, I know sometimes it's like, it's not your fault. Sometimes things just happen in life, but also it's like, I can also be aware of any steps I may have taken or any red flags I may have overlooked and things in my life that have caused me to do that, caused me to see this as normal, caused me to not be able to process things. A lot of times it's because we didn't get that emotional regulation from our parents. It's because the parents weren't willing to talk and sit us down and, help us work through the feelings. So they become this insurmountable monster. And I feel like for you, it's just a matter of kind of getting a hold of things, even just learning to breathe, even just sitting with the feelings, sitting with the emotion, sensing what comes up, listening to your heart, listening to your emotions can help you get out of that decision and just make a better choice, or get out of that freeze mode, panic mode. Also with talisman, talisman is to a certain extent a guide, and what's coming up for me with that is like compass, and how we all have an inner compass, but sometimes it can be hard to make choices in life if that compass is like uncalibrated. If we grew up with a very like withholding dad who was never around, we may think that's normal in a relationship. Or if we grew up with very dysfunctional behavior around us, again, we may think it's normal and tolerate things that other people wouldn't tolerate. If we grew up where there was like no money, we may start thinking that just living in poverty and just scraping through is normal. And one thing we can realize is we do have the power to change that compass. We do have the power to shift our mindset. We do have the power to shift our expectations, to start changing what we expect. And I think a big way to do that is just to change what you view, change what you focus on. Start focusing on the things that make you feel good, start focusing on the things that uplift your energy, and really making an active choice as well to surround yourself with materials like that. For example, looking up content where instead of it being like fighting all the time, it's someone that treats their partner really well, or wealth content, someone who's making a lot of money, so that changes this poverty mindset we may have. But yeah, what I'm coming up with for you guys is just a message that maybe the reason why you're in this situation, it may have to do with your past, and that needs a little unpacking. And also with talisman, that is a message that you are on your own divine journey, and to a certain extent, some of these things are fated. So also, I always think nothing that can happen to you, it's like nothing is that bad. Everything is fixable, everything is changeable, everything is workable. You know what I mean? And sometimes we do go certain things or through certain things, or we choose certain paths for ourselves on the other side because we do want to experience that pain. We do want to experience that journey. And I do feel like there's a vibe of that happening for you as well. Let me get into one more card for you. Pile number 1. So we got unexpected visitors. I love this because I'm getting, for some of you guys, there may even be a scarcity mindset when it comes to love or romance. That sometimes may cause you to put up with like bad behavior or not the most incredible people around you, where maybe you think, well, this is just what I have to deal with. Like, I don't have another option and it is what it is, but I don't really have a choice and I have to accept this. I don't have a say in it. And there is that message that, you know, you do have a say in it, first of all. And second of all, we live in an abundant universe. And trust me, there are so many opportunities. There are so many options. What's coming up for me, Spirit just showed me this in my mind of like, you know how certain CEOs, you'll find out that they own like 50 different companies. Like, I was just reading about the guy who owns currently the LA Times, and he started out as a doctor, which I was really surprised. I'm like, wait, he has a PhD, but he owns a newspaper? Like, wait, I expected him to be like an entrepreneur, a business guy, but not a doctor, you know, like working in the emergency room or something. And he is a doctor. He did get his start that way, but then he also transformed that into like so many different other companies. And so he has his kind of fingers in lots of different pots, so to speak, you know, and he's doing lots of different things. And I think that's very true for a lot of people who are like huge CEOs and stuff, is like they might be on the board of this company, but they also work on the board of this company, and they also advise this, and then they also do this charity thing, and then they also helped invest in this startup, so they get money that way, and then they have this real estate. And of course, that's not necessarily an option for all of us. We can't afford to invest in like a bunch of tech startups and give them 10 million each, but I do feel like, you know, there's something to be said for their mindset that they have. Like, a lot of times I might, if someone was like, hey, do you want to buy the LA Times, and I had the money for it and I had no experience in owning a newspaper, I would probably be like, no, I don't want to do that. That's a lot of work and I'm not familiar with owning a newspaper. I would probably run it into the ground. So I'm okay. That's just going to lose money. But a lot of these entrepreneurs, it's like they don't want to just be involved in one thing. They want to be involved in multiple things. And why am I bringing this up? Because it seems like people who have money, they also have that kind of abundance mindset. If someone's like, hey, do you want to buy this company for a lot of money? And we're not sure if it's going to make money or not, because keeping in mind also a lot of newspapers have been losing money, failing and not doing so well. But a lot of these businessmen are like, yeah, let's buy the company. Yeah, why not? You know what? I don't care. I'll take the risk, because they have an abundance mindset, because they see the potential in all these random areas that other people may not see anything in, that other people may see a dead end road. I'm also thinking of how, like, they say Jessica Simpson and like Jessica Alba are both two of the wealthiest women in Hollywood, which is really funny because, of course, Jessica Simpson, she hasn't released an album in like years. Jessica Alba, I can't think of the last time I saw her in a movie. So in your mind, when you think about who the wealthiest celebs are, you'd probably think of someone like who's center stage or getting every movie role, or like Scarlett Johansson, someone who starred in a big role, or a singer that's everywhere and just performing, like I don't know, Ariana Grande. But actually, a lot of times it's the celebrities who open these companies. And I think Jessica Alba started Honest Beauty like years ago, before organic and like, eco-conscious things were as much of a trend, and then Jessica Simpson opened her shoe line. So even though their careers aren't doing as well in terms of their traditional like acting, singing, they were able to make more money through that. And I actually remember hearing about Jessica Alba like and how she owned an organic baby line, and I was like, oh, that seems like a really bad idea. Like, who would want to buy organic diapers from Jessica Alba? You know what I mean? Like, doesn't seem like she would know what she's talking about. Just, yeah. But it's made her so much money. And like I said, a lot of times it's just the one who's brave enough to do it. It's just the one who's going to be willing to take that risk. And I do feel like for you guys, there's a message about having that abundance mindset and never telling yourself the message that this is the end of the road for me, or I can't get anything else, or I'm just stuck here. I mean, I'm sure if Jessica Simpson, Jessica Alba had just continued to trudge along with their music or acting careers, we probably wouldn't even hear from them nowadays, because let's be real, both of them are not like performing a lot. They're not getting these roles like they used to. So like a lot of other actors or singers, they probably would have just faded away. But because they have these companies and they have this money and this financial power, we still are like aware of them and they're still thriving. And anyway, my point is for you is that so much of success is just being willing to be brave enough to do it, just having that faith in yourself and seeing opportunity where other people might. And where I think that relates to you guys is like, why do you have this scarcity mindset? Why do you have this in your mind that there's one way to do it, one way to have success? Again, part of their success was going outside the box, going outside what they had been put or labeled as like, oh, you're just a singer or an actor, and being willing to step into a totally brand new role and embrace something that no one else was doing. And by that, I mean, they also had the mentality that like, of course I can do this. Of course I can open up this. Of course I can step into this space and I'm going to make it happen. And when you do that, the universe receives that message. And I feel like for you guys, if there's any kind of scarcity mindset that is holding you back or making you think like you can't do this, or this is the end of the road for me, or I ran out of time, or whatever, just know that is not true at all. You are so capable. And a lot of you guys are completely able to do whatever you want. Okay. You are so powerful. Pile number one. And I want you guys to really realize that. I want you guys to know that you are so powerful. You can absolutely do this, and you do not need to be sitting in that place of feeling like there's a lack or you can't do it or anything like that. Your guides really want you to know that. Let me get into some of these cards for you. Or actually, you know what? They're telling me to use this deck. So that's what I am going to do. So let's use this deck and some messages for pile one. Vanishing mirror, ego sublimation. Okay. So for some of you guys, that could be about really not paying attention as much. And this is sometimes, I think, what causes us the greatest pain is the ego, like this feeling of what is everyone else going to say? What is everyone else going to think? And that's the biggest thing that holds us back from our destiny is like, it's like, I'm thinking of this Taylor Swift song, But Daddy, I Love Him, where she's like the Hannahs and the Sarahs and their Sunday best, basically talking about people who like whisper about or gossip. Anyway, I think those like Hannahs and Sarahs or whatever she calls them, they live so rent-free in all of our minds. We all have this idea of, what is this person going to think of me? What are they going to say about me? I had a really interesting experience recently where there was someone who I was like Instagram mutuals with from high school. And for some reason, I think it's because a guy I had a crush on. So I kind of like, you know, was excited because he would follow me back. He'd like all my stories. And even though, of course, like high school, you know, who cares? But still there's that little 15-year-old part of you that's like, oh my God, he really likes me and blah, 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 even though it's so stupid. It's just likes or whatever. And you know that intellectually. But I think deep down rent-free, like there was a part of me that not just with him, but with other random people from my past would worry about, well, what are they going to think if I post this on Instagram? What are they going to think of this journey? And certain people that you like just kind of, I don't know, you have this desire to impress, and it is from like that younger part of yourself that doesn't even matter anymore, but there's still this tie to them. And actually, I realized I went to see his page because I was just, I don't know, I think Spirit had put it in my mind, and I realized he had unfollowed me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And honestly, it was so freeing. I was actually really relieved. I was like, oh, finally, great. Because we were never close in high school, so that's why I was kind of like, oh, he follows me. Okay, great. But yeah, so I was like, oh, he doesn't follow me anymore. And it made me realize, though, the sense of relief I got made me realize how much, sadly, that does live rent free in our minds, and it does weigh on us. Even if you think it's like this distant feeling, a lot of times it does affect us. And realizing how much that sense of ego, that sense of like, I hope they're impressed, I hope they like me, I hope they don't think I'm a loser, still lives in our mind is like very humbling, but also very freeing when we can be aware of it. And the truth is that none of those people have the same journey as you. None of those people have the same destiny as you. And chances are they probably don't give an about you. Okay, like I'm sure he obviously unfollowed me, didn't care at all, you know. And it's funny, it's not like I had some major crush on him, but it's just funny that, yeah, that like I even cared, really, to be honest. I was even surprised that I was like, oh wow, that kind of feels like a burden unleashed somehow. I think maybe because I didn't really know him well, and so I was like, oh, why does he follow me? And then yeah, but yeah, my point is that I think so much of the time we have people like that live rent free. The truth is they're living their life. They probably don't care about us. And there's nothing we could do to even get their interest that much. You know, like even if we did the craziest thing, they'd probably just be like, okay, wow, that's weird. And if we did the most impressive thing, they'd be like, good for them, whatever. Anyway, on to the next, continuing to scroll, or they just don't even think of us. They unfollowed us. They couldn't care less. So yeah, I think realizing that like no one really cares as much about you as you may think they care about you, and realizing that we do not need to be in that energy of trying to get their approval, trying to get them to like us, trying to win them over, and that so much of our destiny actually comes when we give up on that and we accept that there's going to be people who never understand us, who think of us as a clown or an idiot or just you know, don't think of us at all. That's probably more likely. That's when we really can have our breakthrough. And for you guys, you may be feeling tortured by this decision because it's challenging your ego. There's a part of you that is so afraid of other people's judgment. What are they going to say? How are they going to feel? What are they going to think of me? And the reality is they probably won't think of you at all. And also, it's like I have been on the other side of feeling like, I don't know, I reached some pinnacle and I had reached a point where I felt like I got a ton of approval, a ton of pats on the back. And honestly, it wasn't very fulfilling. You can see this with a lot of celebrities who may be at the top of the world or have so much success, so many fans, so much money, and they're just miserable. The truth is that approval really doesn't do much for us. And so just a message from your guides to make sure you're making your decision from that place of genuine self-interest, genuinely what you want, and not thinking about what anyone else has to say, because it's not their life, it's your life. And similar to when I saw that guy had unfollowed me, I was like, oh wow. And I kind of thought, even though I don't think he had lived like in the forefront of my mind, I wouldn't consciously think, oh God, what will this person think of me when I would post? But I think there's a lot of people like that. Maybe an old hater, maybe an old enemy, and they all kind of form this little group that lives in the back of our consciousness, right? That like kind of is judging or has things to say or will react or would gossip or would send our post to someone else and like comment on it. And it all, again, like coalesces into this like background noise that plays in our minds. And when I realized he had unfollowed me, there was a part of me that thought, God, I just wish I'd posted what I wanted even earlier. Again, not that I was like directly thinking about him, but it was kind of freeing to me of like, first of all, he didn't even care. I don't even know when he unfollowed me. And two, I'm sure there's so many other people like that on my following list that kind of, there's this little piece of me that's like, ooh, I hope they don't judge me. And they don't, and they probably don't care, and they probably don't even think of you. And once you get past that, it's so freeing. And so I wish Not that, again, it was something I was consciously thinking of, but I kind of wish I could go back in time and just never think of anyone like that and just completely post whatever the heck I want to and be 100% authentic. And I think a lot of us have had times like that where we edit, filter ourselves because of some person's opinion. And I really feel like your guides are telling you, listen, pull back and focus more on yourself and what you want, not what other people have to say. So we got whale song resonating and lost in space needing direction. I always think it's funny when these like making a choice or needing direction cards come up in a reading, because it's like, yes, spirit, yes, that's why we're pulling cards. We need an answer. That's why we're trying to get one. But yeah, I feel like as well with resonating, to me, how that's resonating for me is with when we meditate, when we can get into an energy, we can often feel energetically what's right for us. We can feel what spirit wants us to do. And I think sometimes that's why we kind of run away from it. Sometimes we just don't want to know. We don't want to know the weight of what spirit is asking us to do. Sometimes it's a big decision and we're like, I don't want to have to do that. So this is why we may try to blot out our consciousness by doing 12th house things, doing any kind of addiction, drinking too much, taking substances, or eating too much, or shopping, or scrolling all the time. Anything that takes us out of our actual physical body and our minds and our consciousness and puts us into this place of like weird panic, anxiety, avoidance, chaos. That is, sometimes a desire to run from God, to run from spirit, to not listen to that intuition we have that's asking us to do something or to make a change, because sometimes that feels so big and so insurmountable and so like, oh my God, that would be such a big deal. And sometimes it's also worth noting that when something is fated for you or spirit is asking you to do something big, trust me, spirit will also make it easier. In the same way, a lot of times those things we procrastinate on, like, oh, I know I really have to clean my bedroom, or I have to make my bed, or I have to send this thank you card. It could be the smallest thing, but we end up putting it off, freaking out about it, panicking about it. And then eventually it's just like, we finally get around to doing it and it's like, oh my God, that took me 30 seconds, or that took me 10 minutes, or it took me a half hour. That was so easy, and I just wish I'd done it earlier. And by the same token, even the biggest life event, a lot of times we will find that if we can just be willing to step into it, be willing to take it on and actually do it, that it's a lot easier than we thought it was going to be. It's not this huge journey that requires so much and taxes us and is just so difficult. It's actually going to be a lot easier, and maybe even streamlined and made doubly easier by spirit, because again, spirit really wants us to do these things that are fated for us. So they are going to make things easier and kind of like oil the wheels so things flow a little bit more. Let me get one more card for you. Pile number 1. Joyful music, inspiration. Wow. So I also feel like there's a message for you about paying attention to your emotional state and how you feel. With joyful music, that reminds me of how happy people can be when they're like producing art, when they're doing something in line with their destiny. And so much of the time, just that feeling we get when we're doing something, or when we're in a certain energy, when we're around a certain person, when we're engaged in something, that is like the message of where we're supposed to head or what we're supposed to be doing. That is spirit's way of telling us, yes, this is for you. You feel so good when you're doing it, or you feel stressed, you get anxiety, you're freaking out about it. That's also a message saying, I don't think this is for you. And if when you sit and you meditate and you take some moment and time for yourself, you feel this overwhelming sense of peace, calm, and clarity, that is a huge green flag. And if when you sit down and think about the situation, you feel tension, you feel anxiety, and you really do have to sit, think, meditate, clear your mind, sit with the emotion and see what comes up. And again, sometimes that's the scariest thing to do. Sometimes the scariest thing is to admit the situation, figure out a way out. It's just easier to just keep going and just put it off and just ignore it and just pretend it's not happening. You see it all the time on that show Hoarders, which I love because it's such a 12th house energy delusional show. And I can say that as a Pisces 12th houser, that like it's so 12th house, low vibrational energy of someone who is just ignoring their problems as they literally pile up and just pretending like it's not happening and just kind of smiling through it and just like ignoring it. And a lot of those people were traumatized at some point, and that's why they're engaging in that behavior. But that's why it's so important to realize I have the power over this. I don't have to live in my trauma for the rest of my life. I don't have to continue with dysfunctional behavior. I can pick up and clean this house at any time. I can change my life. I can get out of debt. I can get out of this relationship. I can. And maybe it's tricky, maybe it's hard, but I can do it. And whatever you're procrastinating, whatever you're putting off, it's so amazing to realize you have the power to adjust it. You have the power to move through it. You can change your destiny, and you don't have to put up with anything that is making you feel awful or stressing you out. And some of the time, the way through, the journey through is just by like doing it, just by listening to yourself, getting some clarity, sitting down and facing that problem head on, and allowing spirit to bring to your mind what they want you to do. So speaking of making a decision, I'm torn between giving you guys some of these cards for the final reading, but I am feeling like spirit wants me to spin the astro dice. So even though I wasn't planning on doing that, I'm going to do that for you guys. So what astro dice do we have for pile number 1? Okay, so we have Mercury and Sagittarius in the 10th house. Okay, so we have Capricorn energy, Mercury, which rules Gemini and Virgo, and Sagittarius energies coming out. So technically, Mercury is not super happy in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is kind of a little bit of an optimistic, kind of spacey sign, and Mercury needs to be very like information oriented. And in the 10th house is ruled by Saturn and Capricorn. So it's again kind of a harsher energy that doesn't vibe as well with Sagittarius. I do feel like for you guys, this energy is about maybe being very clear about what's going on, being willing to admit it to yourself. And it's not to say being depressed about it, or I think actually there's so much freedom in like admitting what's going on, right? Admitting the problem. Like a lot of times we make things out, we catastrophize them. We kind of make things out to be worse than they are, when actually it's a little bit of a quick fix. Like it's kind of like, I have gone out to eat with people, and I think in America, we are just very used to like ordering and customizing our food orders at a restaurant. Like it's no big deal to say, oh, I want this like bacon cheeseburger, but I don't want any cheese on it. Or I don't like the blue cheese. Could you put on just cheddar? And that's like pretty normal in the US, but I have gone out to eat with people who are like European and stuff, and they will like get so stressed out if you're like, oh, could you just do no pickles or no onions? Because they'll be like, oh my gosh, like you shouldn't ask for that, or you're asking for too much. And I'm always like, it's such a simple request and they can say no. It's not like I'm asking for like 10 modifications. And I don't know why it's such a silly thing, but spirit is bringing that to my mind, how sometimes we tend to catastrophize actions or decisions, right? We tend to think like, if I change this, or if I screw this up, or if I do this wrong, then it's going to be the end of the world. When so much of the time, the waiter, if you ask them that, the waiter's just like, sure. Or they'll be like, no, we can't change it. And then it's like, okay, like the other day, a friend of mine and we went out to this kind of ramen shop that had like, basically vegan ramen dishes. And there was dumplings on the menu, which I love dumplings. I will eat like dumplings in any form, like Asian dumplings, Russian dumplings. I love them. So of course we got that, and it had like 5 chili peppers next to it. Like it was super, super spicy. And then I also got this glass noodle soup, which was also really, really spicy. And so me and my friend, we ended up splitting a lot of things. And by the end, we were both like breathing so heavy. We both like spice, but this was like way too much spice. And we noticed that some of the people who were around us, like their items looked very different. And so I guess my friend went up and asked someone about it. And they were like, oh yeah, you can just completely tell us what amount of spice you want. And like, you should have Yeah, like you can adjust. You can say you want a little spice or you want on the side, and so that's what those people did. And when they came back, we were both like, "What?" Because at that point, it was so spicy, we kind of couldn't even enjoy it. Like our mouths were on fire. And it was one of those things where I was like, "Oh my God," because the dumplings were so good, but I was just at that point so spiced out, I could barely taste anything. And it was like if we had just asked, if we had just been willing to kind of like live in that discomfort. And I guess why that's coming up for me with you guys is I feel like there's almost like this situation is not as untenable as some of you guys may think. Sometimes your anxiety will cause you to freak out about a situation, like be like, "Oh my God, we can't ask for less spice. Oh my God, the waiter's gonna think you're a jerk." And it's like, okay, and if they do, so what? You know what I mean? Or if they say no, so what? Or if they're like, "Yeah, we can do that," or, "Oh, it's a couple dollar upcharge." Okay, like, you know what I mean? But so much of the time, there's like this illogical part of our brain that turns on and is like, "No, I couldn't do that," or "I just have to take it as it is," or "I shouldn't ask that," or "I don't want to be an inconvenience." And so much of the time, you may find if you're just willing to address the situation, whether that's asking someone for help, whether that's reaching out, or just kind of taking on the situation and fixing it ourselves, that maybe it's easier to fix than we thought. Maybe it's not as bad. We're not as locked in. We have more options than we seem to realize. And if we're not so pessimistic, if we're not so rigid about it, we may find that like actually this situation is totally fixable in retrospect. And we both said, it was good food and there were certain things better than others, but we would not get the super spicy stuff again. Or if we did, we just say, "Oh, can we get it on the side?" And then I think it would have been really, really tasty. Or can we get like dialed down the spice to a 3 instead of a 5 chili peppers? And I probably would have been so much more enjoyable. So now we know we can ask. But that's a metaphor for life as well. You have to ask, or you have to be willing to adjust, or you have to be willing to say, "I don't like this situation," or "I feel stuck," or "I don't like how this is headed," or "my intuition is screaming and going off." And you just have to sit down and be willing to address it. You have to listen to yourself. You also have to know yourself. I was telling my friend this because I was like, I saw the 5 spice chili peppers on the menu, which was like so much more than anything else. And I said, I think I always overestimate my spice ability. Like I'll do this on pizzas too. I'll like sprinkle on a lot of like the little pepperoncini red pepper flakes. And then afterwards, I'll have my mouth burning because I put so much on. And actually, if I just dial it back to like half the amount, I enjoy it so much more. And for some reason, my brain is always like, "Oh yeah, this will be fine. I like spicy." And then it's like, I didn't like it that much. And again, part of it is like knowing yourself, knowing what you like, knowing how you feel, knowing what you are going for in life, and knowing what it feels when you're out of alignment with that, knowing that this is too spicy for me. I like it on medium spice. I don't like it super, super spicy. Then that helps you to ask for what you want from the universe. So yeah, that is what I have for you, pile one. I really hope that resonates, guys. And yeah, if you want to see more of my readings, head on over to my Patreon where I post all my additional readings. There are over 100 exclusive readings you'll only find on Patreon, and you also get early and ad-free access to all my YouTube videos. I just posted a reading all about who is coming towards you, but there are so many great readings over on Patreon for you to choose from and look through. And like I said, you also get early access to my YouTube videos. So if that sounds good to you and you'd like to join and sign up, then head to the link underneath the timestamps in the comments in the description, and I would love to see you there. Also, if you would like to book a private session with me, you can do that at my website, briarrosetarot.com. Whether you're looking for a tarot reading, an astrology session, an open channeling session, whether you want it to be a quick half-hour reading or a full hour-length reading, whether you want it to be pre-recorded or live, you get to really customize your session. So it's the perfect session for you. So if that is something you're interested in, head to my website, briarrosetarot.com, and the link for that is in my description. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm sending you all my love, and I will see you very, very soon for another reading. Take care, guys. Bye. Hey, pile two, welcome to your reading. Let's get into your cards. Let's see what messages Spirit has for us for you today, pile two. So we got Gentle Gardener. This is a really beautiful card, and it can show that spirit is in control of your life, fate, destiny, whatever you want to call it, that you are on the right path, you're at the right place. And if there's something that you've been stressing out about, if there's something that has been causing you anxiety or worries, or you are just ruminating about something, stressing, just know that this is in Spirit's hands. Spirit is looking over this situation. Spirit is aware of what's going on, and Spirit is going to be handling it. So you don't need to freak out. You don't need to be nervous. And even that you're on the right path, that things are aligning for you, even if you haven't seen the final breakthrough or everything hasn't happened exactly like you thought it would. Not to worry, because again, that is being aligned in the right direction. So if you picked this pile, this can be a really beautiful, excellent message for you that like you're at the right place at the right time. And any anxiety that comes up, any feeling of stress or nervousness is not for you to freak out about or listen to or overly think about. I'm also getting a message with this older woman that you can see on this card that for some of you guys, this is a message from some of your ancestors that just want you to know that they are very strongly around you at this time, especially if you had like a grandmother on the other side, that they may be looking out for you, working for you, and aligning things for you. If you've asked for a manifestation, if you have put together a vision board, or you've been asking, speaking out loud to your guides, to your ancestors, asking them for something, saying you want something, they are working on it. And not to worry, because everything is going to unfold for you in the right way. Let me get some more messages for you. Pile number 1. Stuck in the mud. Okay, and then we got Ghostlands. Wow, so those are two somewhat similar cards, not completely, but how the messages are resonating for me with you is sometimes when we need to get the Gentle Gardener card is when we're in these energies and we're feeling stuck, we're feeling like nothing's moving forward, we're feeling like things are very stagnant for us. I feel like there is an element of divine timing, and that there's also a message for you about how things sometimes don't happen right at that moment, maybe because there's a need for them to unfold in the right way with the right timing. I'm always thinking whenever I hear about like a bridge collapsing or something, I always think about those people who must have driven over it like 30 seconds before, maybe turned the corner and never known that they were so close to that. And even about the people who maybe, because there were so many stories on like 9/11 about people who missed the bus that day, or were running late, or their alarm just didn't go off, or they were always on time to work, but something crazy happened. Their kid ended up getting sick and they had to stay behind to like take care of him and measure if he had a fever, and all these crazy events that kept people from like making their plane that day that was going to take them to New York and whatever, or having a bad feeling, or just oversleeping or whatever, and like crazy amounts of people that ended up missing that and not being in the World Trade Center at that time. And I feel like there's probably so many more stories like that we don't even realize. The time that you're so annoyed because you're stuck behind a car and you are probably cursing spirit. You're probably being mad at your guides like, oh my God, so great. And I have to, of course, be behind this bozo, and now I'm running late. And it can be so frustrating when you're in that situation, but it may be happening for a reason. There may be an accident that you're supposed to avoid. There may be something going on that you have no idea about. And even when you're feeling stuck, sometimes that's because maybe there's something about that like you're not fully ready for, and you're being prepared. So at the right moment, you can access that when you're ready, when you're capable to deal with that, when you are emotionally, physically, monetarily ready. That's when you will have that blessing. And it's not really for us to rush the process or freak out about it. If we're doing everything we can to align with that energy, then just trust the process. I'm also getting this message with Ghostlands for some of you guys that there are like people from your past who are really thinking of you. I don't know who that applies to, but that just came through really strong. This could be ex-friends, or for some of you guys, an ex-lover or romantic partner. But I feel like there's people that really kind of watch you, and there's two sides of it. There's people who really wish you well, and there's other people who are kind of afraid of your potential, pile too. And I feel like both these groups watch you to kind of see what you're doing. I do feel like a lot of you guys who picked this pile are going to have some major success in the future, or some major moment of like maybe validation, or wow, like I can't believe I did that. And these people are going to have to watch it. And if they are your supporter that are like cheering for you and rooting you on, then they are going to be super pleased. And if they're the hater energy waiting to see you fail, then they're going to have to suffer watching you guys just thrive and do so well. Yeah, but I do feel like you have people who just think of you because you're very memorable, pile two. There's something about your energy that just makes a mark on people, and they kind of can't forget you. You know, they just can't put you out of their mind completely. You stay on their mind, and they do remember you later on. Let me get some more. Oh my gosh. I hope my microphone has not been completely messed up, guys. Sorry if it has been. Anyway, let me see. Let's get some more cards for you. Pile number 2. So we got Talisman. Interesting. So Talisman is a really powerful card, and it does have that message that you're going in the right direction, especially when you listen to your intuition and how powerful intuition is. So if you do feel like you're in the right place at the right time, if you do feel like, yeah, I'm doing things right, I feel a place, I feel an energy of peace and calm, I feel aligned, I feel happy with where I am, then there's that message that that is enough as well. And that's something to really listen to. That's something to really pay attention to. When you have the Talisman card, you know, the Talisman shows that you may be going on this crazy journey. You can see that this is a very winding road. So it may take you through all these twists and turns and all these crazy destinations. But if you can stay focused on the Talisman and also trust, because the Talisman is like your intuition. If you can trust your intuition, if you can keep staying in touch with your intuition and listening to that and paying attention to what your intuition is telling you, then you will get to the destination, okay? You will be able to navigate there. You will be able to get through whatever this is. So whatever you guys are dealing with, just know that these things are very aligned. And again, with the Talisman card, there is the need to get in touch with your intuition. I'm also hearing a message for some of you guys that like you are going to a new location that maybe some of the people around you have never been before. This could be why the Ghostlands energy was coming through to me as people from your past who think about you. Because I feel like there are some people from your past that like could never imagine the places that you're going to end up, or they could never be able to fully conceptualize everything you're going to be dealing with and everything you're going through. And they may have a limited or scarcity mindset themselves that has made them unable to see the potential, or even unable to see the potential in you, not just in the world around them, but in you in particular, because it's almost like if they did that, they'd have to admit their own failures, and it may conjure up feelings of lack or scarcity. So I do feel like some of these people, they may be kind of discouraging in a way. Like they may be that energy that tells you, oh man, you could never do that, or that's crazy, or you really think you can do that? That's wow, you're very full of yourself. And I feel like some of that is because these people have maybe lived in terror or kind of squandered their own gifts, and they are really scared to see you use it. There's also the message that for some of them, it's not even that they're doing anything bad or they have any ill will against you. It's just they could never conceptualize the full destiny that you have ahead of you. They could never go there themselves. They're not that brave, you know, they're just not. They don't have the ability to move past their fears and anxieties and just go for it in the same way you do. And for you, it's not even that you need to be angry at these people or resentful of them or whatever, but just understand that sometimes the guidance you get from someone is from their own limited perspective. And that's why you always need to take it to heart to see where this person is in their life. Like I know for me, for example, There was this time that I was seeing this psychic, and she's a very talented psychic. And I remember she kept telling me that there was a guy around me who had this huge crush on me. And she was just going on and on. He has such a big crush on you, blah, blah, blah. Wow, he's in love with you. He's obsessed with you. And I was like, who is this? She was like, he's very close to you. And I was like, well, I don't have that many close straight male friends. Like, I have some gay male friends, but I don't think they're secretly in love with me. And I was like, I have some looser, like not super close straight friends. Could that be like guys that I don't talk to them that? And she's like, no, 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 you are close. He's very close to you. She was very adamant that he was close to me. And then she gave me this lecture. She was like, the sad thing is he's in love with you, but he has low self-esteem. He thinks that you wouldn't date him. And you might not date him because, yeah, you would maybe, your standards are too high, or you would judge him, or you wouldn't be physically attracted to him. And I was like, well, yeah, I don't know if this sounds like someone I would want to date then anyway. Like, ugh. So anyway, she went on this big rant to me, which is fine, but about how I need to be more accepting, kind of lower my standards, blah, 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 and how I needed to push through and not be so judgmental and all of that. And I was like, okay, I don't know if that's something I really want to do, but whatever. And so a bunch of time passed, and I really couldn't think of who she was talking about. And I thought, well, a lot of other things in the psychic reading were super accurate, but I think she was just off the mark with that. I don't have a close straight male friend, so she must have just been wrong. And eventually there was this guy who was in my apartment complex who lived literally like 2 stories underneath me, like I think the same apartment but 2 stories down. And he eventually confessed his love for me. And he was like twice my age, and I was always friendly to him. We would always chat. I would always talk with him because I was friendly at that time, but he was like twice my age. He was not someone I was physically attracted to at all. I'm just going to leave it at that. And I was thinking, this must have been the guy she was talking about, because she just kept saying, he's so close to you. He's right around you. He's close to you. You guys are so close. And I think it was like physical closeness she was picking up on. Anyway, I realized in that moment when he finally confessed his feelings and said he felt this deep connection to me, that must have been the guy she was picking up on. And he was not someone I would ever have dated. And in fact, when he kind of found out that I was rejecting him, he got very, not threatening, but a little bit, kind of like acted a little scary, and was just not a good situation. This was not someone I would ever have wanted to be with. Anyway, the reason why I'm bringing all that up is to say, when I went through, because that whole situation made me curious about her, so I decided to like go through, look up her Facebook, like look up more info, kind of like lurk, like, okay, what's going on with her love life? Because she kept telling me, you're too judgmental. And I'm like, judgmental of this guy? Like, I would not want to date him. And sure enough, I looked up her with her husband, and she had made a post on her blog or something about how she was fighting with her husband a lot, and they were going through stuff. And frankly, I looked him up. He didn't seem super like a catch to me, not to be judgmental. But anyway, my point is that, and the thing is, people can make their choices for what they want in life, but you can make choices, and you are entitled to make choices for what you want in your life as well, right? That can be her path, and that's great for her. No judgment. But I can also, and I am allowed to take my path and to choose what I want for myself. And it was certainly not to date this way older guy, twice my age, who then threatened me when I refused to go on a trip with him, which is what he was asking me, and trying to pressure me into doing. And I was frankly really glad to be done with him. No matter how much he, quote unquote, loved me, adored me, and all these things she said, I was uncomfortable with the whole situation. And I feel like that's the thing, is people have a limited vision sometimes. And this is why I frankly think you need to be careful who you seek out for spiritual advice sometimes, or just take it with a grain of thought. of salt, knowing that they are speaking from their limited perspective, for better or worse. They have their perspective, they have their dream, they have their vision, and they're only going to be able to give you guidance for their mindset. And by the same token, some of the people around you aren't going to be able to give you that vision, that advice, that wisdom for what you want in your life. And it can be really important to stay aligned with what I want, not what this person wants for me, what they think is better, what society thinks is better. We're going to see this more and more as Pluto moves into Aquarius. This focus more on the individual and not going along with just what society thinks. I think we're going to really see a restructuring of institutions like marriage that people have been really kind of historically pressured into. We're kind of already seeing that, but I think it's going to happen more and more and more, because I think a lot of people are going to start aligning more with what makes them genuinely happy versus what people think, or just fitting into a societal Capricornian ideal or society's rules. Anyway, my point is, just like that was such a light bulb moment for me, in that I had been seeing a lot of psychics and I was really taking their advice as like complete word, like it was like channeled straight from God, and everything they said was complete. And I realized then in that moment, it's not to say she was wrong, because technically she was right. This guy, when he confessed his feelings, he was very into me. I'm sure he had deep feelings in his heart. He probably thought about me a lot. Whatever emotion she was picking up on was probably quite accurate. But the thing is, I had no interest in dating him. And she was only able to give me advice from her perspective as someone who was not necessarily someone who had the same concerns, or I don't want to say standards. I don't want to sound judgmental, but she didn't have the same concerns as I might have about partners. And that's completely fine. Again, everyone has their own journey, and it's not to say her journey is wrong and mine is right. It's just to say she couldn't necessarily give me the advice I needed on how to build the life I wanted. And maybe someone who had a little bit of a different mindset when it came to love and was more exacting, or was more willing to just hold out for something she wanted, could give me better guidance or wisdom in that arena than someone who was maybe more content with a relationship where there was a lot of arguing, or where, the relationship may not have been as fulfilling. But anyway, my point is, for her, she was only able to give me wisdom from her perspective. And again, that's completely fine. I still think she did a great job as a psychic. She gave me very accurate readings in many areas. And that was just the only message she could deliver based on her paradigm. And I say all that to say, so much of the time we have parents, we have friends, and they may mean well for us. They may truly be giving us the best guidance possible. They may even have concerns, fears for us. They may tell us, no, don't do that, because that's something they're afraid of, or that's a mistake they made, or that's something that like boomerang back on them badly, or had bad effects for them in their life. But the only decision we should be making is what our intuition tells us. And we need to be so aligned with our intuition, and also our sense of what we like and what we don't like, what we want and what we don't want. There's no wrong answer for what kind of life you should build, but there is answers that don't resonate, that are wrong for us, right? That don't resonate with us. There's no one size fits all formula of what's going to make you happy. For someone, it could be living in a huge city, being single, dating around, and that makes them super happy. For others, it could be living on a farm, in a relationship with like 6 kids running around. And that's going to make, both those scenarios are going to make the other person miserable. My point is we have to really listen to what we want and our heart and what we are hearing from spirit more than anyone else's thoughts or opinions of that. Let me get into some more cards for you. Pile number 1. Let's get some message cards for pile 1. Will o' the Wisp, treasures hidden in the shadows. So I am getting that message that for some of you guys, you may be getting some blessing that comes through that you really don't see coming. Like a blessing that you wanted for the longest time, it may come in at a time when you like gave up hope, or you're like, there's no way that could happen. Or you've just resigned yourself of like, yeah, I think I'm stuck in this situation, or it's never going to move forward, or that's just how it is. I feel like for some of you guys, there is that message that if there's something you felt very stuck on or very frozen with, or there's some situation where you're like, I've been trying to manifest, I've been trying to change it, I've been trying to move forward and nothing's happening. Again, just trusting the timing, trusting the unfolding, keeping your energy aligned with what you want, keeping your thoughts positive, genuinely positive. You know, one of the worst things you can do is try to manifest by just saying random, like meaningless mantras, like saying, I'm so rich every morning, when it makes you feel poor every time you say it. Every time you say, I'm so rich, I have millions of dollars, and it makes you think about the fact that your bank account is like, you have like 30 bucks in there, and it just stresses you out more. One of the worst things you can do is repeat a mantra in that mindset of like, I'm so rich, I have so much money, and you're just getting more and more depressed. And a lot of people do that, or they'll write out mantras, but they don't believe them. And the difference is your energy is everything. If you can shift yourself into an energy of genuinely feeling rich, then you don't even have to say it out loud. You can if you want to, but you don't have to say it out loud. The energy shift is what matters, right? I'm so abundant, or I'm so happy in love, or I'm surrounded by love, or I'm surrounded by joy, or I'm just happy where I am in life. And that will align us. So if you can keep your energy aligned with the target, with the goal, then you don't need to worry. It's not up to you to figure out how it's going to happen, or exactly when it's going to go down, what it's going to look like. Your job is to relax in the meantime, because I do feel like there's a message for a lot of you guys that this blessing may come in an unexpected way, or at an unexpected time when you're not seeing it coming. I mentioned this in other situations, but one of my things that I think is the most annoying is how a lot of times I will get an intuition, and I think a lot of us do this, but then I'll reason myself out of it because I will start thinking about the logistics. Like, for example, this one time I was having like a package delivered, and I ended up, but I was like, oh, and I had this strong feeling because it was an important package, like, go ahead, order it today. But I knew I was going on vacation. So I'm like, well, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time for it to be delivered. And I kept getting the intuition, order it now, order it today. And I was like, no, because it's not going to be delivered on time. I can't get it delivered. So yeah, just basically leave me alone. Anyway, I ended up getting really, really sick and having to cancel the whole vacation, missing the vacation, and being sick for a couple of weeks, because it seems like whenever I get sick, I get sick for a while. I think it's my 6th house moon. It takes me out. It takes me a while to heal. But anyway, yeah. So I was sick and I couldn't go on the vacation. I missed the vacation. And there was that part of me that kept thinking like, oh, I'll get better. So let me not cancel everything yet. I'm just going to wait it out. And I ended up feeling like, oh my God, I missed the window to order the delivery. I wish I'd ordered it so much earlier. Because I had wanted it earlier. And anyway, my point is that if I had just listened to the intuition and just listened to like, okay, I'll order it, even though everything is pointing to the fact that I'm not going to be here for it. But if I just gone ahead with it, my intuition was right. And I think so much of the time that happens to us, we get a download, we get a feeling, but then we blow past it, we ignore it. And I feel like for you, you just need to know that at the right time, you're going to get the download. At the right time, you're going to get the message. And of course, that divine timing works on its own schedule. It doesn't work on a human logical schedule. And a lot of times it happens in ways that we would like never, ever, ever expect. It happens in ways that maybe from the outside logical Mercury brain. This is why I always mention like Virgo opposes Pisces on the astrological wheel. Like that logical brain is often opposite of our intuition. Actually, when our intuition is operating, sometimes it can feel like it makes no sense. Why would I order a package like a day before I go on vacation? That doesn't make sense. But you know what? Our intuition so much of the time knows so much more than we do. Let me get into some more cards for you. Pile number 2. We got Cosmic Womb, the Divine Feminine. Another message with the Divine Feminine is it is receptive. It kind of waits. It's not super active. It is more passive. Not to say feminine energy cannot be active, but I do feel like, feminine energy, the best feminine energy is more aligning with the energy and then maybe waiting for the alignment to happen instead of like seeking it out and making it happen. So when we're being called to be more in our divine feminine, we may be being called to sit back, to receive, to align ourselves with that energy of rest. This is why the kind of card that really aligns with the divine feminine, the Empress card on tarot, which literally shows a symbol of Venus on it, shows a woman in repose, who's resting, who's laying back, who's relaxed. Because so much of the time that divine feminine energy is going to sit back and wait for spirit to make it happen, wait for spirit to bring it to us. So this is your message. Again, you don't necessarily have to take action, make it happen, force things, push your way through. You can just get yourself in a beautiful, good energy and then wait for it to align. I feel like that's what spirit is calling for you guys to do. Let's get some more cards. Okay, guys, got 2 cards. One is Sky Dancer, Surrender, and next, Benefactor, Grace, and Generosity. So with Sky Dancer, Surrender, and the Benefactor card, I feel like, again, it's that same message that, like, Spirit is handling this situation. Spirit has got it. And at the right moment, you may feel like everything comes down and unfolds exactly as it should. You might be kind of in the waiting room where maybe things haven't happened yet, but at the right moment, it's going to align and it's going to move forward. So all you have to do is kind of surrender to this situation. Not to say you have to be completely passive, but you don't have to force it. You don't have to twist someone's arm or make it happen. You can just relax. And just like you would if you had a benefactor who was like paying your bills, taking care of it, you wouldn't be stressing. You wouldn't be freaking out. You would just be sitting back, relaxed, aligned, calm, peaceful. And I feel like that's the energy spirit really wants you to have, just knowing that this beautiful divine timing is happening so strongly for you guys. You are being taken care of. And if there's something you've been trying to manifest or make happen, just don't worry about the timing. Just don't worry about when is it going to take place or let me rush this. It may be being timed exactly right. And just like I always mention, I am the most impatient baker ever. So I have taken out so many like cakes, brownies, tarts out of the oven early. And it's so funny because yeah, it does not taste the same. You might also be like, oh, well, the brownie batter is really good, but it doesn't taste like a full-on brownie. You need to cook it the full amount of time, no matter how hungry you are, no matter how good it smells and how much you're like, well, I just really want to bite now. You just got to be patient and wait that full hour for the cake to finish baking and all the chemical processes to finish happening with the baking soda. If you actually take it out too early, again, I made this mistake multiple times, you actually stop the chemical processes and like the cake you're making will not rise the same way. It won't rise as well. You'll disrupt the airflow and the temperature of the oven. So you need to just have that patience and understand that it does need the full hour to cook. And if it's only been 20 minutes, no matter how good the kitchen smells at that point with the smell of cookies or whatever, you have just got to sit back and relax and wait and allow it to take place because it is not ready yet. Okay, let's get some more. Let's get some astro dice for you. Pile number 2. So we have Scorpio, the 9th house, Sagittarius, and this is Jupiter. So we have double Sagittarius or Jupiter energy. Jupiter also co-rules over Pisces. But right now we have Sag and Scorpio coming through, and technically Jupiter in Scorpio in the 9th house. So Jupiter and Sagittarius 9th house energy is all about expansion, broadening our palette. And one thing that is so great about Sagittarius is it's the sign of the archer. So just like I was saying with this talisman card, that one thing that's so important with manifestation is keeping in mind what we want. I often think a spirit will give us lots of opportunities to be like, hey, do you like this? Will you settle for that? Is that good enough? Like, in a way, if I had really been super kind of vulnerable, I think I would have listened to that psychic when she was scolding me and saying, you need to give this guy a chance. And maybe if I had found out that she was talking about him, maybe there's a part of me that would have been like, well, maybe I will date him. Even though he's someone I'm not attracted to at all. He's twice my age. He's kind of creepy. But let me go ahead and date him because she said that. And then the universe is like, okay, so that's what you want? You're good with that? Great. done. And that's why it can feel scary sometimes to move past that energy where we're being encouraged to settle. And it's really important to focus on what we actually want and to keep that in mind and to hold that vision. Because if we end up allowing ourselves to get dejected, to get depressed, to start thinking, this is it for me, or that was my last chance, or that was my only option, then that's when things can go left for us. Sagittarius is amazing at holding that vision, and that's because Sagittarius is the archer. So they have to keep in mind that bullseye or that target they're going after. Just like if you are in an archery contest, you can't like look around and just stare at the opposite wall and then shoot your arrow. It's not going to hit the target. You have to be focused in, locked in on what you want, and keep that at the forefront of your mind. One of the things that also has made an impact on me is the one podcast I usually listen to is like the Dateline podcast. I love Dateline. And so I remember I was listening to this episode and they were talking about this woman who was like this amazing woman. She had her own company. She was beautiful. She was like a former beauty queen or something. And she was like super successful, had made a lot of money. And anyway, obviously, if it's on Dateline, it didn't end well. And she was unalived by her husband. And they were talking about the husband, and he just seemed like such a loser. He was, I think, unemployed, and he did lie about her. He did lie to her about it. He didn't tell her like he was unemployed. He did like fake having a job, but it was very sketchy. And he was also like unattractive compared to her. And all the friends who were being interviewed over the course of this Dateline, because of course they kind of weave it like a mystery, like you don't know exactly everything that's happened at first. And so they said in the interview, like, we really couldn't understand why she was with him, or it didn't make any sense. They didn't make sense as a couple, and she was just so great. And then he was just kind of there, and they didn't fit together. And anyway, what they said was they did interviews with her friends, and they said they thought the biggest reason why she was with him because there were so many issues. Like he had some anger issues and he was just kind of like unpleasant. Then she found out he didn't have a job and all this stuff. And she was with him because she had turned like 36 or 37 or 38 or something. And at the time, which was like the 90s or whatever, she was kind of thinking that she needed to settle down. She wanted kids. She wanted a family. So she ended up with this guy. And of course, ultimately, he was such a loser and he resented her and he ended up unaliving her for like insurance money. But the point of all that is I thought, wow, that is such a message, a like warning, because I think all of us can fall into that tendency to just panic and settle or feel like, oh my God, this is the end of the line, or I'm not seeing exactly what I want to see. So let me just grab this next opportunity. Like, this is fine. This is good enough, right? And that's why it's really important to continue. One of the things about Sagittarius and both Jupiter ruled signs is they're extremely optimistic. Pisces gets a lot of flack for this because it can be optimistic in a way that's like, are you not even thinking at all? But Sagittarius is also optimistic. It's just in a fire, more energetic and like taking action type of way. But they're both inherently optimistic. There's a lot of optimism in Jupiter because it is the great benefic. And having that optimism, when you focus your eyes on that prize and you know that everything is going to work out, there's so much power in that. Even with Pisces, where people like to make fun of Pisces. But Pisces is often ranked as the richest sign in the whole zodiac, like year after year. It's at the top or in the second place for the most billionaires. So obviously something's working when it comes to that Pisces optimism, and Sagittarius has it as well. And I feel like for you guys, there is just that message to keep your head screwed on straight, to be optimistic, to see the good, not to allow yourself to get bogged down by those negative outcomes, to think about things from a possibility perspective, from an optimistic perspective, instead of a what could go wrong perspective. And also with Scorpio, maybe really listening to your intuition. It's not to say you have to be an idiot. It's not to say you have to be stupid about it, but make sure you're keeping track of what you want and you're staying on course with that, and you're not allowing yourself to get bogged down by any negativity. So that is what I have for you. Pile number 2. I really hope that resonates, guys. If you want to see more of my content, then be sure to check out my Patreon, where I post all my additional readings. There are over 100 exclusive readings you'll only find on Patreon, and you also get early and ad-free access to all my YouTube videos. I just posted a reading all about who is coming towards you, but there is so much content to choose from over on Patreon. I also posted one all about the first quarter of 2025. So like I said, there's lots of content, and you also get early access to my YouTube videos. If that sounds good to you and you'd like to join me on Patreon, head to the link underneath the timestamps in the comments and the description, and I would love to see you there. Also, if you would like to book a private session with me, you can do that at my website, briarrosetarot.com. Whether you're looking for a quick half-hour reading, a full hour-length reading, a tarot reading, a channeling session, an astrology session, whether you want it to be pre-recorded or live, you get to customize your time with me. So it's the perfect session for you. If that sounds good, then head to my website, briarrosetarot.com. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I will see you very soon for another reading. Take care, guys. Bye. Hey, pile 3, welcome to your reading. Let's get into your cards and see what messages we have for you guys. So we got cleaning house. So some of you guys may literally feel called to do a deep clean, and I always think it's amazing how much cleaning your space, literally physically cleaning it, can make an energetic difference. You know, we do accumulate all kinds of negative energy, can hide in clutter, dust, dirt, filth. That can really contain a lot of negative energy. So when we actually take the steps to clean that or to clear out whatever debris, whatever trash, that actually can make a huge energetic difference in our space. And we may feel a lot better when we have a physically clean area to work with. Also, taking spiritual baths can be so important, cleaning our own energy field, our own aura. So putting some Epsom salt in a bath and then washing ourselves, sitting in the bath with the intention of clearing that energy, visualizing ourselves having any negative energy leaching out of our body into the water, that can make a huge difference. I always find after an Epsom salt bath, I am so much happier. I feel so much better, especially if I've been feeling off. I will say as well, even just taking a shower, that act water is an amazing spiritual conduit, and it can really cleanse us. So even just popping in the shower, if I do a really difficult reading, like a personal reading, and then I have done, maybe I showered earlier in the day, but I will still just pop in the shower and quickly wash, especially my chakras, but I usually wash all over, but then with a special emphasis when I'm washing all my chakras of like, okay, I'm cleansing this area, I'm cleansing the energy. And I do find it makes such a difference. A lot of people will notice this after they swim in the ocean or swim in bodies of water. They will find like, oh, I feel so much better at the beach. I feel so much better after I go surfing or go for a swim. But they don't realize they are literally bathing in salt water, and salt water is a huge cleanser. And all water is a cleanser of energy. So even if it's a day at the lake or in a river, they just will find themselves feeling really restored. And that is not a coincidence. That is a genuine spiritual truth that is happening, where we do carry these things in our body. We do get affected by other people's energy, other people's vibration. And this is why it can be really important to keep up that routine of cleanliness, whether it's personal cleanliness or just cleaning our space and making sure that we don't have a bunch of dirt and debris and dust. And if our space is getting a little cluttered, you know, it does happen. I personally love a little like knickknacks around. So I don't love like a perfectly empty room. It just doesn't do anything for me. So I get it. Sometimes even if you have that mentality, you can end up having like more clutter than you wanted. But taking the steps to clear that out and like just clear some space can be so key and so crucial. So just a message for some of you guys, there may be a need to do that, especially during the change of seasons. It's really great. We know about spring cleaning, but even as we enter into winter and the winter season, it can be great to go through and clear out that energy, throw the windows open, especially if you're going to like sage, by the way, or clear the space with some kind of incense or something. We need to make sure that like the windows are open, that we're letting some fresh air in, that we're letting some sunlight in. And a lot of times if you're depressed or you're feeling low, you may cleanse your space or do the dishes or whatever and just be like amazed at like, wow, I feel so much better. Let's get into some more cards for you. Pile number 3. Rescue. Okay, interesting. So yeah, I think sometimes as well, there's this message with rescue where sometimes we can feel like we desperately need to be rescued or someone needs to come in and fix this situation for us or improve this situation for us. One of the most freeing things is realizing that we can like rescue ourselves. We don't have to be dependent on anyone else, and we can actually change the outcome of different situations, especially with our mindset and especially with what we expose ourselves to. Even though we may feel stuck, even though we may feel like we don't have agency in a situation, a lot of times we have more agency than we realize. We don't necessarily have to put up with situation. And actually looking again at this cleansing house card, that can also be a message of cleaning the people around you or cleaning situations that no longer serve you. So if you are in a relationship and you really don't feel that good in it, maybe you feel kind of I don't know, not appreciated or not aligned or not valued. Just knowing I don't really have to tolerate this. And I can make the decision at any time of letting go of something that doesn't serve me. When you get that cleansing house energy, can also be a need to pay attention to like how you're feeling. Do you feel respected? Do you feel aligned with the people who are in your life? Or do you feel like they kind of don't really appreciate you, take you for granted, that kind of a thing? I also feel like there's that message, oh, what was I gonna say? Something was just so strong in my mind and it just left. Hopefully I'll get it back. But yeah, I think that, you know, we don't have to necessarily tolerate, oh, I was gonna say, I personally agree so much with this quote, which is like, are you depressed or are you just surrounded by a-holes? And sometimes, you know, if you have certain signs of depression, like it's been hard for you to clean your space, you feel really frozen, you feel really stressed out all the time, you're anxious, you have anxiety, it's worth questioning the situation you're in, the people around you, the people that you are allowing to be in your energy space. There are people who, whether they realize it or not, are energetic takers. I notice this so much in readings that sometimes I'll do a reading with someone, a personal reading, and I just feel so drained afterwards. I just feel so like depleted. And then I'll do a reading with someone else and the energy is just pouring out of me. It's like I just took a shot of espresso or something, and I don't drink coffee, but it's like, wow, I might as well have just drinking a big cup of coffee because I feel so energized. And often I don't even think anyone's trying to do anything bad. It's not like someone comes into the reading with the intention of like, oh, let me drain energy. Of course not. But the thing is that people can be energetically draining, and I don't really know what the formula is or what makes the difference. But the point is, we do have an obligation to ourselves to pay attention to that. Because if we are habitually exposing ourselves to people who make us feel drained, who make us feel like depleted, then that is a red flag that even maybe there's nothing wrong with them. Maybe they just don't align with us in the right way. I'm thinking of someone in my life who like really screwed me over and ended up really like causing a lot of problems for me. And this person, it's so funny because the whole time when I would deal with them, I would always feel so drained. And then I would beat myself up in this like empath mode of like, oh, but I don't know, she's really nice. She told me like, you're one of my only friends. You're my only friend. You're my best friend. And I was like, oh, so I felt this really strong obligation to continue dealing with her. And I felt like I couldn't be mean and it wasn't her fault and blah, blah, blah. And so eventually when I cut out off the friendship, that's when she kind of got vindictive, ended up really going out of her way to screw me over. And it was such a wake-up call for me because I thought, you know, the whole time, again, I think Oprah has a line where betrayal hurts not because of the other person, but because you betrayed yourself at some point, because you saw the writing on the wall, you got the red flags. but you didn't listen to them. You blew past them. And that's how I felt towards myself. Like I was like, every time I'd hang out with this person, I would feel like I had just been hit by a Mack truck. I would feel so drained. I would feel so depleted. And yet I would continue to hang out with her. And when I think about it, I think it's because she was fundamentally a very selfish person. Even though she would say, oh, you're my best friend, whatever. She wasn't very curious about me. She wouldn't really ask me about myself. She wouldn't really help the conversation. And I always felt bad for her in that sense. Like, oh, she's kind of socially awkward. She doesn't have as many friends. So you know what? I feel bad, and let me just try to send her more and more love. And once, sooner enough, she's gonna get all the love, and she's gonna be the kind of friend I would like to have, or I need, where she's gonna ask me about myself, and she's gonna be curious, and we're gonna have this better relationship. So let me just stick through it, and eventually she's going to transform, which of course is so delusional, right? And kind of narcissistic or self-serving anyway. But the point is that that never happened. And what I had to realize when she screwed me over, because she did that without a second thought, like she was vengeful, angry at me for being like, I don't really want to be friends with you anymore. And she just went out of her way to screw me over. And she had no guilt about it. And I realized probably the reason why I was so drained is she's just not an empathetic person. She didn't really care about me. She may have said, you're my best friend. But I think for her, that was also a self-serving thing about, I just want someone to go out with. I want someone to go to restaurants with and sit at the bar and hopefully meet guys. I want someone to be able to, you know, put on a cute dress and be seen out at a club on a Tuesday, or be seen out at a cute restaurant on a Friday night. So let me hang out with this chick. But I don't think she really valued me as a friend, or even knew me that well. And that's probably why it was so easy for her to screw me over, and probably why as well I would always feel drained, because I wasn't really a full person to her. I was more of an object that served her. She was still always more focused on herself. And you know what? I think that's okay for someone to have that energy. It's okay for them to have that energy, but I don't have to engage in it. And I think it can be so hard, especially when it feels like logically this person is my friend, or they do like me, or they've told me I'm their best friend. So how could I cut them off? But if I feel so drained, that is a message from spirit that this person is not really meant to be in my life. They are not aligned with me. So maybe I remember being so stressed out at that time because I felt like she lived really close to me. So I couldn't really just beg off and be like, oh yeah, I'm super busy, bye. So, you know, us Pisces and Aquarius combos, we're good at like, more like not ghosting straight up, but you know, not telling someone directly like, oh, I don't want to deal with you. So it's more like, I'm just always busy now. Or whatever. That would be more my way of just phasing someone out of my life. But I couldn't do that. And so anyway, my point in all that was I felt so drained all the time. I felt this lack of energy. I felt exhausted. I would go out with her for like 2 hours to get dinner, and I would feel afterwards like I had run a marathon, you know? And I feel like so much of the time, people who may feel like I'm depressed, or I'm going through something, it's like the first thing you should question is, are you surrounded by people who are pretty selfish and like really exploit your energy? Are you surrounded by people that expect you to anticipate their emotional needs? Because if that's the case as well, another question is, why are you engaging in it? Because that was the thing I had to come to terms was my part in it. I could have at any time chosen to extricate myself, cut her off, tell her, you know what? I'm just not feeling this. And you know what? I'm sorry, I'm busy, or whatever. I could have chosen to put up boundaries, but I kept blowing past them. I kept kind of doing what was easy. I didn't want to disrupt things, and just plodding along, hoping it would get better, telling myself delusional things of like, no, it's not that bad. It's okay. I remember one time even we were out, and we got to talking with this group of girls who were seated next to us at the bar. And I think I was especially eager to just talk to like anyone, because anyone who would like engage and ask questions back and be like easy to talk to was just like, oh my God, yes. Instead of just kind of like self-focused the way she was. So I remember talking to these girls, and we were getting along really well. And then one of the girls leaned over and she literally asked me like, hey, what's wrong with your friend? And I instead of like seeing that as a red flag, that I often think spirit will validate us. If they're trying to send us a message, they will directly send us that message. They will have random people comment on it, or we will see suddenly a bunch of movies with this plot line, or we'll, suddenly come across a book and we're reading it and there's a side plot that's like exactly like this situation. And in my mind, that was spirit's way of trying to get my attention. Like, girl, this is not a really super functional friendship for you to be pouring your energy into. But of course, I didn't take it that way. Instead, I actually got offended, and I was like, well, I didn't say anything to her, but I was like, oh, I can't believe she would say that about my friend. That's so rude. I kind of brushed it off and just said like, oh, I think she's tired. But instead, that was my moment to think about it. It's like other people could even see what was going on. And instead of me listening to my intuition, I just kept blowing past it, serving someone else, listening to someone else's needs instead of listening to my own. And anyway, I feel like that message for you is, if you are feeling so depleted, if you are feeling just completely at the end of your tether, you deserve to pay attention. You are not anyone else's slave, servant, little, lapdog that has to appease them. So pay attention to how you feel in these different situations. Pay attention to how your energy aligns. And you're the only one. When everything went down the way it did, the only person I could really be mad at was myself. Because again, I saw the red flags. People would literally bring up to me red flags and say, what's wrong with her? What's going on? And instead of me listening, I would just get mad at them or be like, oh, it's fine, whatever. It was so ridiculous. Other people had contacted me about her and said, oh, she's kind of shady or something. And again, did I ever listen? No, I just kind of ignored it, crossed my fingers, and stuck my head in the sand and just pretended like it was all good. And so I couldn't be mad at anyone else except myself when it all went down. Let's get some more cards for pile number 3. So we got protecting treasure. And I feel like there's a message there where you guys are your own treasure and you're the only one who can protect you. I always mention that like when you think of like a Fabergé egg or the Hope Diamond, if you ever go to the Smithsonian in DC to see the Hope Diamond, trust me, it is protected against underneath glass. It is back behind, there are security guards nearby. There are lasers protecting it. Anything that's valuable is going to be protected in this world, but so much of the time we don't protect ourselves. We will end up prioritizing other people, just sending our energy out willy-nilly to whoever wants to access it. We will blow past red flags. We will allow sketchy people around us. The reality is that you are valuable. And again, when everything went down with this girl, I truly felt like my guides were punishing me, and I was so upset. I was like, why would spirit do this to me when I've just been kind and compassionate? I've gone out of my way to make this person happy, to be kind to them, to be nice to them when no one else would. So why am I being punished? Because I should be being rewarded. I should be getting good karma. And then what I realized was my guides are not happy with that. They are not cheering me on that I stopped listening to my intuition. I blew past every red flag and I prioritized someone else over me. Instead, they're actually disappointed with me because they want me to prioritize myself. My guides, and this is one thing I realized doing psychic readings, is I would get psychic readings, and if there was someone that I had cut out of my life or whatever, I always expected, for some reason, probably my own internalized like guilt, whatever. But I always expected the people to bring up, the psychics to bring up, oh yeah, you cut off that friend or that person out of your life. That's really bad. You need to forgive them. I think so much of that maybe came from growing up very Christian, going to like a Catholic school for a while and having a Christian family. And there's a huge emphasis on like forgiveness, turning the other cheek, blah, blah, blah. And that is seen as very spiritual, very ascended. So I thought, that was the right thing to do. And if I was forgiving someone or treating someone well who wasn't really treating me well, that I was going to get some kind of major benefit from it. I was going to eventually get some kind of reward once I had suffered enough. I think that's a very Christian mentality. And so, that was kind of my thinking, was like, wait a minute, this isn't fair. I followed the rules. I did what was right. And now I'm just getting screwed over. But what I had to realize was my guides were concerned with me. And when I would see these psychics, back to what I was saying, I always expected them to scold me and say, listen, you need to contact that person. You need to ask for forgiveness. You need to forgive them. You need to make up with them. You need to turn the other cheek. You need to be nice. But instead, they would always bring up any person I'd cut off, a friend, whoever, and be like, oh, and they're bringing up this. And they are so happy that you cut off this person. And honestly, it was very shocking to me. If it hadn't happened, I was seeing multiple psychics around this time in my life. And so I was shocked that all of them would say the same message. Your guides are thrilled. They're so happy, because I truly expected the opposite. And it kind of was like crazy to me. Like I was literally like, huh? I kept expecting and going into psychic readings, if I had cut someone off, with this overwhelming feeling of guilt, or like you're going into the principal's office, like they were going to say, hey, did you cut off this friend? Shame on you. You need to contact them. You need to forgive them. You shouldn't be judgmental, blah, blah, blah. So that's what I always thought was going to happen. And it was always throwing me for a total loop when they would say, no, like they're so glad. They're so happy. They just wish you'd done it earlier. And that was the first wake-up call for me. And then I feel like this person screwing me over was like the major wake-up call. Like my guides were done playing with me and they were like, okay, girl, you don't want to learn this lesson? It's time for you to get like the really harsh punishment. And we're not playing around with you anymore, because we know we've sent you the message to these psychics. You are also intuitive yourself. You know dang well that you're not supposed to be putting up with this anymore. So time to bring out the big guns. And so in a way, it was such a blessing. But my point is that that's when I really started to think about and internalize. And this is why I often use selfish as a compliment, or mention that the sun is exalted in Aries, the sign of the self, because I think so much of the time, especially when you're spiritual, you are encouraged, especially if you're Christian or something like that. But so much of the time, anyone who's spiritual gets encouraged to prioritize everyone else, to forgive, to be so kind, to be so nice. And the reality is often it can cause you to override your intuition and what spirit is telling you, and run yourself ragged, run yourself into the ground, put everyone else in front of you. And I truly believe that is not what our guides want. When I talk to psychics, or not psychics, when I am working as a psychic and I talk to people on the other side, angels, ancestors, the team on the other side, they are never, ever, ever telling someone, oh, I'm really upset you cut off this toxic boyfriend because he has a lot of childhood trauma and we really want you to get back together with him because you know what, he's just been through a lot and you need to just forgive him. They never ever say something like that. They are always like, oh my God, why didn't you break up with him earlier? You deserve so much better. They are never like, oh my gosh, put up with your toxic mom. They're always like, oh, so glad you cut her off. They really want us to live our own life, to have our own journey, to have the blessings and abundance and live out our destiny. Keeping in mind, we come to earth as individual souls with individual missions. And yes, we do make soul contracts to meet up with certain people, to carry out certain missions, but we are an individual soul on this planet with our own itinerary that we are supposed to follow. And no, for none of us, that itinerary is like being some kind of little servant that's helping someone else to develop, and we are never supposed to focus on ourselves, right? That's why people get upset about the concept of something like slavery, is because it's like, even if that person was given food or whatever, we know fundamentally that there's something so wrong about someone being robbed of their free will and them being considered not as important as someone else and just being forced to live in service of someone else. We know fundamentally that even if they were treated okay, even if there was no violence or whatever, it is wrong. And by the same token, it's wrong for ourselves to sign up for these relationships where we are someone else's helper and we get nothing back. So I feel like there's that message for you that some of you guys really need to protect yourself, look after yourself. And again, if this is something that's already happened, maybe you've been screwed over by someone and you were checking into this reading to understand, why did this happen? There can be that message. Did you ignore the red flags? Did you engage in self-betrayal? Did you prioritize someone else over you? Because if you did, that's exactly why it happened. That's like asking, I drove down a wrong road. I drove down the wrong way and I eventually went the wrong way. Why did that happen? Because you drove the wrong way. You know what I mean? And our guides are never happy about that. I think that's something that's so important to understand, especially because there can be so many mixed messages in the spiritual community about putting everyone else above us. And it's like, no, again, the sun is exalted in Aries. I'll always mention that because I just feel like that's such a says it all moment. The sun, our soul, our destiny is exalted. It's in its highest strength in the sign of Aries that rules the first house of an individual identity, Aries being a selfish energy. And that's where the astrologers that have so much wisdom chose to exalt the sun, not in the Pisces self-sacrifice energy, but in its sister sign that comes in to correct the excesses of Pisces and is all about me, what I want. So I don't know, there's so much wisdom there. Let's get one more card for you, pile number 3. Goblins, more confirmation. Some of you guys may really be surrounded by people that are not with your best intentions. You know, when I look back at that friendship, as much as she guilted me when I was like, no, I don't want to hang out with you anymore, I don't think she ever really liked me. And I had that feeling. I don't think she ever really got me. I don't think she liked me. I don't think she was particularly, maybe her ego was hurt, but I don't think she really cared about me. And so much of the time, people get into these relationships with us, not because they are actually connected with us, they actually like us, they actually enjoy us, but because we serve them. And that's one of the worst relationships to be in. That's why, honestly, when I'm first getting to know someone and they ask for a tarot reading right away, it's one of my biggest red flags, just because I'm like, first of all, the tarot readings can be draining. I like doing them, but you know, if I don't know you that well and you're already being like, hey, just can you pull cards for me? It's like, that's like me going up to someone at their job and saying, hey, can you do my accounting or can you do my taxes? So like a friend who's an accountant, you know what I mean? And I get not everyone gets that, but my point is there's so many people that will just extract whatever they can out of you. They don't actually like you. They like what you can do for them. They like how you can serve them. They like how you can add value to their life. They're not actually connected to you as a soul. They're not actually enjoying you as a soul. They don't have any positive will for you. They just like what they get out of it. And that's why I think it's actually a really good thing to make it clear, or to kind of send that message of like, oh no, sorry. I don't have time to do a tarot reading, or I don't really do tarot readings for friends. Maybe if someone's my best friend, but yeah, no, I don't really do that, to be honest. And then setting that as a boundary, because it's like, you will see some people are just like, oh, and then they lose interest and they don't want to talk to you. Once they know they're not getting that out of you, it's like, oh, see ya. And yeah, I think in general, so many of us, especially in the spiritual community, not everyone has the strongest boundaries. A lot of us have also been kind of indoctrinated with this message that we have to give, that we can't be self-serving. So a lot of us will fall into these traps of just behavior that we are constantly serving others instead of ourselves. Let's get into some more oracle cards for you. Pile number 3. Lost in space, needing direction. Okay, and this is Joyful Muse, inspiration. Galactic Mushroom, the Divine Matrix. And let's get one more card. You guys get 2 cards. Stranger, Curiosity, and Eyes of the Eagle, Rising Above the Fray. So there can be that message with Eyes of the Eagle, that for some of you guys, I feel like you are being called to have a very mature perspective on this. Not to just give into the energy of being caught up in the moment. I think, like I said, at the time with that friendship, I was very tied into feelings of guilt, or feeling like I had to do it, feeling like I was tied to her and I really couldn't say no. And I just kind of like, the situation kept marching on, and I felt very out of control with the energy. And I wish I could go back in time and tell myself, like, you have full control. You don't have to say yes. You don't have to hang out with this person. You can say no. You can push back. And I think so much of the time, again, we get into situations and it can feel like we just have to tolerate it, or we just have to put up with it, or we really can't say no, and it just is what it is, and I don't really have a say over this. And realizing that you absolutely do have a say, you do not have to tolerate anything that you don't like. And it can be as simple as, I don't like it. It doesn't have to be that person is toxic, or that person is evil, or that person is using me. It can be, I just don't feel good in this situation. I just don't enjoy this person. I just don't really like this person. Or I just don't really feel my best. I feel like for some of you guys, this reading really fundamentally comes down to giving yourself permission to be selfish, giving yourself permission to think about and prioritize yourself. And if you need that, trust me, you just got it, because you are an individual soul going through this lifetime. And you know what? You do not have to prioritize anyone over you. I also feel like with the galactic mushroom, the divine matrix, and stranger curiosity, what's coming through so strongly is that you guys have lots of options. If you are feeling like, I have to tolerate this, maybe it's also coming from a scarcity mindset, a part of yourself that thinks it's never going to get better, or I don't know if I really will be able to find another option. I know for me, when I think back to that, that was when I lived in LA, and I felt like LA was a hard city to kind of crack. I didn't feel like it was super easy for me to make friends. I think because LA is a driving city, and I didn't really feel like it was super friendly or anything. So anyway, I think I probably tolerated more because I was just like, well, also like, this is also my person to go out with. This is my person to hang with. So it kind of fit my needs in that sense as well. And I wish I had had more of a scarcity mindset and done things to just seek out more connections, and understood that this is never the end of the road. This is never the only option. And this is the only thing Spirit is going to give you. And the more you accept, I don't want to say trash. I don't want to say she was trash, but the more you accept something less than you deserve, is the more Spirit will say, oh, okay, that's good enough for you. Awesome. Cool. Then we're done. So I just feel like there's a message for some of you guys that, like, you have so many options. You have so many opportunities. Please do not allow any kind of scarcity mindset to make you tolerate anything less than you completely want and deserve. Let me get some astro dice for you. Pile number 3. So we got the 11th house, Taurus. Ooh, and then we have the nodes. Okay, so we have Aquarius, Taurus, and the nodes coming through. So with the 11th house, that is the sign of large groups. It also is a message connecting with this galactic mushroom card about how we are all so interconnected. We all share energy. The 11th house is also a sign of hopes and wishes. And it's also a very unconventional house where we kind of go outside of what is expected of us. I also feel like with the nodes coming through, there's an emphasis for me on past lives and how much that can be affecting things. Again, a lot of us may have tendencies that come from our past lives. They can also come from childhood, and we can often seek out jobs in childhood. And a lot of us as children did have jobs, whether it was making our parents happy, whether it was, I don't know, overachieving and making them proud, or whatever the case may be. But a lot of us had jobs with our parents that we signed up for because of past life tendencies. Like, I know for me, I had a Virgo South node, and not to talk too much about my childhood, but I do feel like I was like very much a helper for my parents, growing up. And so this kind of servant energy that Virgo can embody, I definitely see the tendency to do that throughout my life, to kind of step into a role of, also mine is in the 8th house. The 8th house is a house of shared resources and often very close, intense relationships. And I often sought out very close relationships, and then would help that person, help them grow instead of focusing on myself. So depending on where your South Node is, it's so helpful to look that up and then see oh, that's why I did that. That's why I acted that way. Like for me, reading about my South Node the first time, I literally was sobbing. I remember that afternoon so vividly. And yeah, I feel like it's such an impactful thing to really tune into with your astrology, because you may find a lot of your behaviors, a lot of your tendencies do come from that South Node behavior. And usually the South Node, it is not the high vibrational energy. This is why, like in Vedic astrology, they really do not have a happy opinion of the South Node. But it is not like the high vibrational energy of Scorpio or Virgo or whatever. It is the low vibrational tendency. And a lot of us can look that up and see, oh, that's why I was acting that way. That's why I was doing something kind of silly or stupid. And again, Taurus, again, opposing the eighth house, where we focus on other people's resources, we focus on being an aid to others. The second house is where we build our own identity, our own finances, our own money, our own system of values. It's where we value ourself. A lot of the first part of the zodiac is more concerned with the self, and then we move into relationships with others, and then finally the collective. But the first part of the zodiac is more of this self-focused. And I feel like for you guys with that Taurus energy, again, it's focusing on what serves you and really questioning yourself about how do I feel served about this situation. With the 11th house Aquarius coming in, there's also an energy with Aquarius, and I think we're going to explore more and more Aquarian themes as Pluto moves into Aquarius. So it's an exciting time for Aquarian placements. But where Aquarius placements will cut people off really quick, like they will not care. They really will not get emotionally attached, and that's part of their energy and their mission on this planet. Of course, they have emotions, but they won't be guilted as much. They tend to have more of an impassive vibe to it. And there is that message for you guys that if someone is not serving you, you do not need to feel guilted. You do not need to feel sad. You do not need to feel like you're doing something bad. You actually need to really focus on yourself, your life, your journey, because trust me, no one else will. Everyone is going to be focused on what they can get from you most of the time. And so you need to be able to have your own boundaries up. You need to be able to cut someone off if you're not feeling served by that. You need to question, how do I feel aligned with this? How do I feel my energy is being returned? Or do I feel like it's just being drained and depleted? You need to start valuing yourself, pile 3. And I feel like that message for you is really strong. And you may find as you make those changes, as you start to remove certain things from your life, your energy comes back, maybe even your creativity with this joyful music card, that you're able to just give more to yourself, achieve your dreams, manifest more, because it's like you don't have these anchors holding you back. So that is what I have for you. Pile number 3. I really hope that resonates, guys. If you want to see more of my readings, then be sure to head to my Patreon where I post all my additional readings. There are over 100 exclusive readings you'll only find on Patreon, and you also get early and ad-free access to all my YouTube videos. I just posted a reading all about who is coming towards you, as well as one about the first quarter of 2025. Can't believe we're almost at 2025, but there is so much content to choose from over on Patreon. And like I said, you also get early access to my YouTube videos, so you get to be the first to watch them. If that sounds good to you and you're interested in joining, then head to the link underneath the timestamps in the comments in the description, and I would love to see you there. Also, if you would like to book a private session with me, you can do that at my website, briarrosetarot.com. Whether you're looking for a quick half-hour reading, a full hour-length reading, a tarot session, astrology session, channeling session, a combination, whether you want it to be pre-recorded or live, you get to really customize your time with me. So it's the perfect reading for you. If that sounds good, then head to my website, briarrosetarot.com, and the link for that is in my description. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I am sending you so much love and light, and I will see you again very, very soon for another reading. Take care, guys. Bye.